Hey everyone, it's Jocelyn, and in this video, I'm going to answer the question I get more than any other, which is, how do I get out of my own head? How do I play with more confidence? How do I stop freezing up in games? As a peak performance coach, I help elite athletes earn more minutes, get more playing time, score more points, get recruited, get scouted, essentially just level up their game in all capacity. And the question I get more than any other, mainly in messages on Instagram from athletes and parents, even some coaches, is how do I help my athlete play with more confidence? How do I myself play with more confidence? Why do I freeze up in the middle of the game? Why can't I translate what I'm doing in practice into a game situation? So in this masterclass, I'm going to go through the exact same system that we work with on our athletes to help them play with more confidence, play consistently, play with composure under pressure. So if you're finally ready to level up, stick around because I'm going to show you this entire system and not only how it works, but more importantly, how to implement it into your own game. So stick around. In this video, we're going to cover 4 critical mistakes that you are undoubtedly making that's kind of inhibiting your game and holding things back. We're going to look at 4 simple and proven solutions to these mistakes that you can implement right away, right after this video is over. I'm going to show you the secret to the MVP mindset and why it's probably not what you think in terms of implementing a performance mindset every single game. And then finally, I'm going to give you some resources and next steps, like I said, if you want to implement this right away. So let's jump right in. A little bit about me. So you're new here. My name's Jocelyn. I'm a peak performance coach. And this is just a snapshot of the teams and organizations that I've worked with over the last 15 to 20 years. So been doing this for a while, worked with hundreds of athletes at every level. And primarily that work started off doing workshops and designing training systems for teams. And then I eventually migrated to working one-on-one with athletes because that was really where my passion lied. And I wanted to help design systems that were going to help them. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about these 4 mistakes that you are undoubtedly making right now as an athlete. So if you're here, I'm going to assume that you're not just some recreational player. You're actually a serious competitive athlete. You've poured countless of hours and dollars into trainers, tournaments, travel teams, but there's a deeper question that keeps plaguing you. And that is, why can't I play the same way in games that I do in my practice and in my training? So you're seeing yourself doing the same or more work than other athletes. You're putting in the time, but it's just not showing up on the floor. So let's go through these 4 mistakes that you're undoubtedly making, which is inhibiting your game. The first one is poor investments in physical training. Now, let's talk about this and what exactly I mean by poor investments in physical training. And the best way for you to understand this is just to hear a little bit about my own story. So this is me and my family. We live in Central Florida, just outside of Orlando in a place called Winter Garden. We're about 10 minutes from Disney World. This picture is us at Universal Florida. We've got 4 kids. They all grew up in Canada. We ended up in Florida. Longer story, different video, but our kids all grew up in Canada, and 3 of our 4 kids played college basketball or were college basketball players. Our 4th, she's on the right track. She's a little older than she looks in this picture, but she's on the track to get there as well. But I tell you this because I used a different approach with my kids, the same one that I've used with high school and college athletic programs, and we saw some different results with them. Okay, so I mentioned 3 of the 4 as college basketball players. None of them had offers coming out of high school. So this is our oldest, Jaden, on the left there, with our youngest, Olivia, holding up as player of the game as a freshman. Then we've got our 3rd, that's Peyton. He's playing college basketball currently right now from a different team in this than the one you're seeing in this picture. And then we have our daughter Taya, who was in this last picture here. She's kind of hiding behind. I'll tell a little bit more about her story later. Also, college basketball player, but 0 offers coming out of high school. And why is that? Well, I learned some vital lessons in my own high school to college journey. Okay, so rewind many, many years. You can tell by the fashion and the styles that's me on the right in my bedroom, wallpapered with Michael Jordan photos, and I'm wearing my club jersey there. And the picture on the left is me coming home from college, my freshman year. We actually had to walk out onto the tarmac to catch flights back then. So I'm aging myself a little bit, but essentially I grew up in a small town called Yellowknife in northern Canada. And I was that athlete who trained relentlessly, right? I would literally rent public gym time with my own money, bring my friends just to practice. So I was, as you can see, scrawny high school kid who didn't get a lot of playing time on my club team because there were a lot of really good players. And I was smaller, skinny, and struggled with my confidence for a long time. But I loved the game, and I loved to work at getting better. And you can see, again, room wallpapered with Michael Jordan posters, as a lot of kids were at the time. But I was determined to play college basketball. So I worked out like a madman the summer before my freshman season and put on some weight, really developed my skill, and I was ready to try out for this college team. Didn't have an offer, just showed up at the school with a couple of other friends, and I was going to try to make this team as a walk-on. So when I got there, tried out for the college basketball team, lo and behold, I made it. I actually made the team. So quick realization, these are grown men at this age, right? I still looked pretty similar to what you see in this picture. I put on a little bit of weight, but not much, but my skill had improved. I made the team. I achieved my goal. But I was so intimidated by my own overthinking that I did not pursue it. In my first year, after making the squad, I told the coach that I wasn't ready to play. Can you believe that? Here I was, I had worked so hard over this last summer and the years prior to that just to make the team. But I was so stuck in my own head about my own ability that I didn't believe that I could survive and thrive on that team. So I passed up the opportunity. Now, the reality is that the year later, I decided to come back, and I was ready at that point in time because of a lot of work that I did in the summer before that on some of these things that we're going to talk about. But despite the evidence, I still didn't truly believe that I can compete. And I realized quickly that elite performance is more than just my physical skills. All right, so tell me this doesn't sound familiar to you. Parents, you've seen what your athletes can do. Athletes yourselves, you're paying for training. You made the team, you have all the physical pieces, but you just can't put it together on the floor. The physical training is clearly not the only issue here. Yet somehow we just think that doing more of the same thing is going to lead to some different outcome. So that's the first mistake that you're making, is believing that physical skills and physical performance and talent are the only things. The next mistake that you are undoubtedly making is being unaware of the core problems. So what does that mean? What are the core problems? If you're watching this, you're likely an athlete between the ages of, let's say, 13, 14 to mid to late 20s. If you're a parent or coach who's watching this, you might have a player in the same age range. And that puts you, athlete, in Gen Z. And you guys have been raised fairly differently from a lot of athletes up until this point in time. You've been raised with technology, you've been raised with smartphones, you've been raised with social media. And the effect that that has had on our sense of identity, our comparison, performance anxiety, lack of focus, low self-confidence, identity issues, all of these things have been rife with this generation. You know, every time you check your phone, your brain is getting a little hit of dopamine. And that same brain chemical that makes you feel good when you eat your favorite food or when you win a game or accomplish something, those same chemicals are getting released just from technology. So on social media, your likes and views and comments, they can make you feel more important, but only in the moment. When the likes stop coming or when the comparison starts to set in, many athletes start to question their self-worth, right? Their sense of identity, especially if you're spending so much time, money, and effort, like we talked about in the previous mistake, on physical training, what's going to happen? Your identity is going to get tied up exclusively with your sport. So instead of developing a self-belief and self-identity from the inside out, you depend entirely on outside approval to feel confident. So let's look at Naomi Osaka.
I feel like for me, recently, like when I win, I don't feel happy. I feel more like a relief. And then when I lose, I feel very sad. And I don't think that's normal.
Four-time Grand Slam champion, she rose to global fame in her 20s. But in 21, In 2021, she withdrew from the French Open. So as a surprise to many, and she just said she'd been struggling with anxiety and depression. And this was made worse by constant media attention and online criticism. So despite being one of the best tennis players in the world, she admitted to feeling pressure to always have to say and do the right thing to please others. She was playing for the approval of others. And social media just added to this weight, making it harder for her to separate her performance from her identity. So she later said it's okay to not be okay, and she had to take a break just to focus on getting her mental performance and her identity back up to snuff. This is a quote from her saying, growing up, she was always taught to tough it out. And she was thinking that athletes were supposed to stick it out and that you were weak if you didn't actually deal with these things. Another famous multimillionaire athlete, Anthony Edwards, he has been labeled a bunch of different things throughout the course of his career on both ends of the spectrum, right? So he was the number 1 draft pick in 2020. He's known for his raw talent. He's very charismatic. But early in his career, many fans and media questioned his love for the game because he was just so relaxed. He had a very different approach to interacting with media and with fans and even with teammates. Social media turned harmless clips into viral debates about his commitment. And then he also had a series of off-the-court issues in his own personal life. So on the one hand, he's talented, he's explosive, he's a face of the league. But on the other hand, he's immature, he's hurtful, he's disrespectful to people. What is his identity? Who is he really? His breakout performance in 2023 showed what happened when he just locked in. He got to a point where he's like, if it's not about basketball, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to focus on the things that are important to me, the game being one of them, but also who I am as a player. So lasting confidence doesn't come from status, likes, or trophies, right? The biggest challenge is that your sport is not your identity. So again, we established if you're watching this, you're not a rec player. You're a serious player. You're an athlete who's looking at leveling up, making it to the collegiate level, maybe even to the professional level. Your identity is not your sport. Your identity needs to be built from the inside out. So here's the hard truth, right? Physical training can improve your body, but it can't fix your belief systems. You can lift more, you can run faster, you can be super athletic, but when the lights are off, you start to question, who am I? What am I doing this for? Why am I here? And that's because your belief comes from within and it needs to be developed. It needs to be built up. It needs to be trained, just like your physical training. So we talked about being unaware of the core problems, poor investments in physical training. What's the third mistake that you're likely making? It's hoping these problems will fix themselves. This is probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to fixing non-physical, non-talent related things in your game, right? So it leads to the third major mistake that athletes are making, and parents and coaches, if you're watching this, you can identify with this as well and relate to this as well. It's just thinking that things will just fix itself. You either hope that over time, your confidence issues, your identity issues are just going to naturally correct themselves, just like a phase you grow out of, or you keep searching for a magic bullet. Like maybe you found this video as a result of just searching confidence or overthinking or how do I get out of my own head, right? You're looking for a magic solution, the perfect coach, the right team, the right trainer. But here's a hard truth. Not only do these confidence and identity issues not magically fix themselves, it probably actually compounds over time, right? Things get worse if you don't actually address them. In fact, the more talented and successful you become as an athlete, the worse it tends to get, right? So you're playing against better competition. There's more demands on you from coaches. There's more expectations from everyone. So without the right tools and support, that pressure can literally turn the molehill of striving to be excellent into a mountain of fear and anxiety. So let's look at this stat. 77% of athletes reported experiencing performance anxiety in the past year, 55.4% in the last month. Now imagine if you heard that stat around a specific injury, right? Like 77% of athletes on this team had an ankle sprain or a rotator cuff or a strained MCL. And imagine if you decided that you weren't going to do anything about it. You were just going to hope that, you know what, I guess this injury will just fix itself. It'll just go away over time. That would be ludicrous. That would be insane. And nobody does that. But everyone treats mental performance issues as something that it's just going to go away. Maybe it'll just resolve itself. The more I improve, the better I get, these things will just resolve. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? So look at NBA champion and all-star Kevin Love.
I felt like my mind was completely out, and Ty Lue had said something to me. I told him I'll be right back. I ran in the locker room. I was essentially searching for something that I couldn't find. I didn't know this feeling. And then I just basically ran to our trainer's room, fell on the ground, collapsed, and my heart was jumping out of my chest, and I couldn't get air to my lungs, and essentially was trying to clear my throat, sticking my hand down my throat, trying to get myself air. Yeah, so it was
must have been terrified.
It was terrifying. I thought I was having a heart attack. I really felt like I was going to die in this moment. I'm getting hot thinking about it.
So on the outside, he looks like a strong, confident leader, but on the inside, he was clearly scared. He was alone. He was worried about how these were going to impact his performance. It wasn't until he started actively working on his mindset and emotional health that things changed. He says here, you can't ignore the things you're struggling with and expect them to just go away. That's not how it works. Another huge example of this is Simone Biles, right? One of the most decorated American gymnasts in history, one of the most famous athletes in the world. She talks a lot about this in her Netflix documentary, so I highly suggest you go and check it out. She's a role model to millions of young girls, but during, again, the 2021 Olympics, around the same time as Naomi Osaka was dealing with her mental struggles, she shocked the world. She pulled out of multiple events. So even though she had trained her whole life and won everything, she felt lost. Her whole identity was just tied to winning. So she later said at the end of the day, I'm more than just my accomplishments, right? Simone had to rebuild her confidence from the inside out. So she says here, for anyone saying I quit, I didn't quit. My mind and body are simply not in sync. I don't have to explain why I put my health first. Physical health is mental health, right? It's integral to who we are. And here's the third mistake, unpacking a little bit more, is that time and talent won't magically change your mindset and emotions. They need to be trained the same way physical skills are trained. If an athlete doesn't learn how to manage emotions, handle pressure, communicate challenges, and build identity beyond sports, their confidence can crumble, even when you're dominating the competition. It's much more complex than just confidence, and it doesn't fix itself by accident. You actually have to have a plan for how you're going to address it. Just like your strength, your speed, your agility, your recovery, your nutrition, you have to actively pursue things, strategies, and tactics that are going to make them improve. So we talked about poor investments in physical training, unaware of the core problems. The third mistake is hoping that the problems will fix themselves. And now we come to the last one, which is avoiding those hard conversations, right? And this is a big one, and something that a lot of athletes, phrases that you hear, things that you say to yourself, but you refuse to kind of face them, right? How many of us have either heard or said these things, either to ourselves or others, right? Got to tough it up, tough it out, just suck it up, right? It's fine. I can make it through this. No excuses, shake it off, right? You internalize all of these statements and phrases, and you just feel like you have to push through. Now, sometimes this is valuable in the middle of competition, right? When you need to quickly refocus and get back to the task at hand. The problem is it never just stays in competition, right? Once the game is over or before the game is actually started, this is terrible advice because it avoids the hard conversations that really address the issues. Every athlete faces tough moments, right? Not on the court, not just on the court or just in the field, but in your mind, in your relationships, in your interactions. But from a young age, athletes especially, and Naomi Osaka pointed this out earlier, is that you're just taught to be tough. You're just taught to suck it up. So instead of dealing with challenges that everyone deals with, we avoid those hard conversations entirely because we genuinely believe that that's the right thing to do, right? That's what we've been taught and conditioned to believe, is just avoid it, just push through it. It'll somehow get better. You don't speak up when something's wrong. You ignore your feelings of doubt, hoping they'll just go away. You avoid asking for help or even just voicing your fears and frustrations because you think it's seen as a weakness. You try to power through it entirely on your own. So this is Giannis, right? And two-time NBA MVP, going to be a Hall of Famer, once broke down in tears after a playoff loss. And he said, people just don't understand what pressure really is and the pressure that he'd internalized for years. So he later shared that early in his career, he didn't talk about the heavy expectations that he felt. He's got a great story, inspiring story, but a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations on his shoulder. He kept everything inside and he just tried to be perfect. But it wasn't until he opened up to his coaches and teammates about the pressure and he had some honest conversations with himself that he found peace and truly started playing freely again. Another prime example of this is Hailey Van Lith. Behind the highlights and the victories, there was something else going on. Around 19, she shared that she'd been struggling in silence, and despite all the success she'd had in high school, on the international stage, in college basketball, she felt trapped, right? She was heavily medicated, and she was actually having suicidal thoughts. She said, I was suicidal, heavily medicated, felt trapped, and you would never know it because I was having a ton of success on the court. But internally, I was ready to be done. Avoiding tough conversations leads to pressure, confusion, and frustration. And worse, at its worst, it can lead to burnout or even self-harm. So obviously we never want to get there, but the problem is avoiding these tough conversations brings us to a place sometimes of no return. So helping athletes learn how to effectively communicate early and speak up often about fears, doubts, and pains is so crucial to actually achieving that performance that you're looking for. Right, so we talked about the 4 mistakes: poor investment in physical training, unaware of the core problems, hoping the problems will fix themselves, and then avoiding those hard conversations. And the simple way to tackle these problems is you have to come full circle, right? And this is where we talk about the 4 cores of peak performance. So elite performance it's not random. It's a bit of a science, right? It's kind of like a chemistry formula. You get the reaction you want when you combine the right elements in the right amount. If you have one element slightly off or another compound slightly off, you don't get the reaction you want. In fact, you might actually destroy the entire experiment. That's kind of how performance works. You need to have all of the elements put together in the right way to make the right compound to enable you to perform at the levels that you are capable of. So these 4 cores are the 4 elements that need to be combined successfully to help you reach that next elite level. So let's look at those. So the first one we talked about is physical. So this is where we talk about mastering your craft, perfecting your skills, building your athleticism, restoring your body, right? This is where athletes spend 90% of their time, and it's important, but it's only the outer shell. So think about the Russian dolls, right? Physical is that outer doll, the biggest one. It has the biggest outside impact, but in order to really solidify and strengthen that performance in that person, you need to go deeper and solidify the core all the way to the center. So we talked about physical as the outer core. Next, we have mental, right? So that's where elite athletes really separate themselves. This is where you learn how to define your emotional regulation. You understand a performance mindset. You learn how to make decisions under pressure. You acquire all the essential disciplines and mindset that you need for elite level performance. Then going one level deeper, you have the relational core. This is your ability as an athlete to communicate with coaches, with teammates, and instantly earn more respect, more trust, and ultimately more playing time, which is what you're looking for on the floor, by acquiring that emotional intelligence to lead confidently, lead yourself and lead others. And then last, but certainly not least, we have the spiritual core, okay? And this is where the identity foundation is formed, and it prevents you from overthinking by separating who you are from what you're doing. This is the real difference maker for performance. Now that we've identified these 4 cores, let's address the mistakes that we were making with the solutions. The first, poor investments in physical training. How many times have you heard these things? I'm always working on my game. I'm getting shots up every day. I'm in the gym 6 to 8 hours per week. I'm working on my body. This is all great, right? You're putting in the work. But the question is, are you measuring the ROI in this physical training, in this investment? Not only of money, but of time, right? So hard work isn't a requirement to be great, but hard work without a strategy is wasted time. Another way to think about this is simply to have a plan. What is your plan for your training? Can you articulate it to me or to somebody else? I don't know how often I hear from athletes, yeah, I'm putting in the time in the gym. I've just been working on my game and it just doesn't seem to translate. I don't know what's happening. And I ask them, okay, well, so what's your plan, right? What are you trying to achieve? And how are you measuring that achievement? And they don't really have an answer. A lot of people look to Kobe as a gold standard for hard work and excellence on the court, which makes a lot of sense. But the other thing about Kobe is that he was probably one of the most strategic, one of the most intelligent, one of the most tactical athletes, and it showed in terms of his performance. he used to have this Number of the Beast workout in his earlier days, 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 6 months a year. And within those 6 hours, it was 2 hours of track work, 2 hours of basketball skills, an hour of cardio, an hour of weightlifting, right? That all sounds great, but it wasn't random. It was well thought out, right? He had a specific strategy behind the work that he was doing. 2 hours of track work is to become an elite defender, to really work on his change of pace, to work on his footwork. 2 hours of basketball skills, this one's obvious, you would think, but he was also very strategic about this. He wanted to become a 3-level scorer, to be able to pick his spots, to be able to leverage the footwork that he's doing in his trap work so that he could have counters upon counters upon counters for defenses as his offense would begin to explode. His hour of cardio, it was so he could play 48 minutes, right? Have legs when it mattered most, have the endurance to work throughout the game. And then his hour of weightlifting, he wanted to get stronger, right? I think back to me, that scrawny kid, he wanted to get that core strength first. He didn't want to be muscular. He wanted to be strong in the paint and to be able to finish through contact, especially as he was attacking more and more often. This level of strategic approach to the game is something that most younger athletes, even when they're on the elite level, don't really see, right? So they see their favorite players, these professional players, and they see clips of them training and putting in all the skill work and developing a bag, so to speak. What they don't see is these trainers behind the scene doing hours of film study, right? So going to a specific player and saying, hey, it looks like 20% of the time when you're on this side of the floor using this footwork and approaching from this angle, you are 45% more effective. So here's how we're going to build our training schedule, our skills training, and our strength training to maximize your strengths. They don't see all that work that's being done behind the scenes by their trainers in terms of having a specific strategy for that specific player. And this is the real difference maker, right? Turning your hard work into strategic work and turning your reps into results. This is just a quick WhatsApp message from one of the athletes that we were working with after a strategic 2 or 3 weeks of shooting sessions was able to have a breakout game. If you do have a trainer, we'll work with that trainer to develop a measurable and fully customized training plan for your development. Right? So this is the key piece here. Measure the ROI and actually have a plan for your physical training. That in and of itself will go a long way towards improving your in-game outcomes. So the second core, which is actually at the very core, but I wanted to go in order in terms of the questions that we were dealing with and the mistakes that we were dealing with, is being unaware of the core problems, right? And this is spiritual. So I need to prove I belong here. Why can't I play like teammate or other player? I can't mess up today. Oh, great, another bad game. Why am I even doing this, right? All of these questions, all of these statements, all of these thoughts that you as an athlete are thinking when you get on the floor, the way to push through that, to defeat that, is to find the why behind the work, right? So your inner clarity, it gives meaning to all the pressure. It gives purpose to the pain. It gives fuel for you to fight through your challenges. So when you can really determine who you are as a person, why you're doing what you're doing, and realize that you are pursuing something that you're pursuing for a reason, but it doesn't define who you are, that frees you up to play at a whole nother level. So here we have the GOAT, right? And one of the reasons why he's the GOAT in my mind is because he was able to step away from the game at the height of his powers, at the height of his popularity, to do something that everybody thought was a dumb idea. And I love how Michael talks about this. He understands the public perception. He understands what people were thinking, but he didn't care, right? Everybody says it was a failed opportunity for him to pursue baseball. And he says that's what they think. But for me, it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it allowed me to go back to the game with a stronger passion. So Michael talks about being in the minor leagues with players making $1,500 a month. And for him, it was less than nothing, but for them, it was everything. It was super important. And for him, it really put things in perspective. It wasn't about the achievement. It was about the pursuit. It was about being on the baseball field and pursuing something that he was passionate about and putting in the effort behind it. And one of the coolest things he says is that he realizes the impacts it has on other people by helping them see that it's not about the results. It's about the effort that you put in and realizing that you don't have to pursue things just based on perception. So I mentioned 3 basketball players. I talked about Jaden and Peyton, but then we also have Taya, who's our second child, our second oldest. And Taya also played high school basketball, played club basketball all throughout those years. And then when it came to playing in college, she was not ready, right? I think she just struggled, I know she struggled a lot with performance anxiety, a lot with perception, and just was not ready to even pursue it at the time. So she walked away from the game after high school, right? She took a year off. She went and traveled. She met some new friends. She pursued some new things. She went to Australia, and she worked as a nanny, and she just did some different things. And then when she came back, she was like, you know what? I think I'm ready to work with a trainer and kind of develop some different skills. And she was ready to work on her mindset a little bit more. And she wasn't doing it with the objective of playing college basketball. She just missed playing and wanted to work on her skills. So one day she's playing in a rec league game, and her and her brother played together on like this co-ed team. And they were both the leading scorers of that game. And a girl that she'd gone to high school with, who was playing on a college team, was playing against her that game. And she said, where are you playing right now? And Taya's like, I'm not playing anywhere. So she asked her to come out to a run with the team. And on the spot, the coach offered her a full ride scholarship, saying, hey, we need you. We want you to come to our program. And this team was actually in the finals of their collegiate league last year. So this wasn't just some scrub team. This was a high quality team. And just based on that year away and improving her sense of identity, she was able to come back and perform at a level that she wasn't able to before. And she still, because she was not pursuing college basketball as the goal, she had other things in her life that she was pursuing. She's like, you know what? That sounds great. I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm okay. She had spent the time and done the work behind the scenes to now feel confident and sure of who she was as a player. And she realized that she didn't really need it at this point in time. And that was okay. This is just a quote from a parent from a session. I would do a lot of these sessions for teams in terms of building that identity, right? And this is just her take on just understanding how technology and how different habits are impacting, young athletes right now. The thing to take away here is that many athletes, they'll go through the motions, but they don't really know why they're playing. So helping identify and clarify your vision, your identity, and your values and belief will go such a long way towards freeing you up to play with purpose and passion when you get back on the floor. Now, the third piece, and it's a second core, physical is on the outside, mental is the second core in. But the third problem that we talked about, the third mistake, was hoping that the problems will just fix themselves, right? I'm just not feeling it today. I just need to practice a little bit more. I need to work a little bit harder. The refs, coach, whatever player got to me. I'm just stuck in my own head. So these are, I'll call them excuses. Athletes call them reasons, but I'll call them excuses that I hear so often. And the issue is that you don't have a real diagnosis of the problem, right? You are hoping that things were going to fix themselves, but until you know what the actual problem is, how can you address it, right? So you need to admit there's a problem and start actually probing for answers. It's like an injury. You keep undigging until you get a diagnosis. We talked about confidence not being found, right? It's built through habits and routines and mindset reps. We talked about Simone Biles, and this was what turned it around for her. As the most decorated gymnast ever, she was able to step back from Olympic competition to really dive deep into her mental performance. And these are some of the things that she worked on before her comeback, right? So she had a mindfulness practice that she would put in place every single day, acknowledging her fears. She was doing focus and breath work, emotional regulation, working on progress goals. So this is a bit of a checklist for a lot of the mental performance things that we work on with our athletes. And that was instrumental for her to come back and regain her form as one of the best athletes in the world. Now, the thing is that athletes need a proven system, right? Something that will integrate with your current training and your practice schedules and transform your game in the process. So this is just a text message from an athlete who we'd worked with, just talking about the impact of a mental performance system in terms of helping her improve her on-court game and her enjoyment of the game, because she now had techniques and tactics that she could use in game to counter all of the things that she was struggling with. So get a diagnosis and get a proven system. And then fourth is the relational core, right? And this was where we talked about avoiding hard conversations. We talked about those phrases: tough it out, suck it up, shake it off. I'm just stuck in my own head. The key to that is to strengthen your circle, right? You need to be able to build high trust relationships and master communication with the people in that circle, and really foster an inner circle that can help you blossom and develop. We looked at the example of Haley Van Lith at the time, and the critical piece for her was developing a strong relationship with her new coach at TCU. She talks about that relationship and how he taught her a lot of lessons about how to have healthy relationships and what it takes to have healthy relationships, and how much better her life can be if she just is vulnerable and she can let people see who she is underneath the surface. And she's experienced so much success in this last year after that transfer. And this was all the result of a new relationship with a new coach, and a coach who understood the importance of building into the relationships with his key player and spent time and strategy to build those relationships from the ground up. So learning the essential communication and leadership skills to help you stand out from the crowd is a key piece to really building that relational core. Now, this is a text from another athlete that we're working with or had worked with in the past, just relaying his experience about how important that was to him. Avoiding honesty blocks all your growth, right? You can take responsibility and not hide from what's really going on beneath the surface. Just doing that alone and learning that vulnerability builds trust in a leadership. You don't have to pretend you're fine when you're not. You don't have to keep everything inside, but you need to have a strong circle that will support you and allow you to open up about the pressure and anxiety that you're feeling so that you can address it and deal with it. And this is a great time to introduce our performance training program and our community called the Breakthrough Collective, which will really allow you to play with confidence, consistency, and composure when it matters most. In the Breakthrough Collective, you go from role player to playmaker, but you use all of the training on and off the court. It's going to develop you not only as an athlete, but as a whole person, right? So there's professional coaching, all science-based training, a lot of the stuff we just talked about in this masterclass. It's all science-based coaching and training. And the great thing is that these are customized systems for each athlete, right? So right out the gate, we do some assessments and develop a customized system for every athlete that they can walk through, and we can measure progress week after week, month after month. And one of the things we really love about it is that it's an elite athlete community that we've gamified, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We talked about the 4 cores, right? The first one being physical, and this is how we lay the foundation for the program. We start by helping athletes understand how to design their training and restoration systems. Focus areas like sleep and mobility and hydration and body awareness. We talk about those things. And then we help you build routines right out of the gate so that you can show up with power. Then we go into the mental core. And as we talked about, right, your confidence isn't found. It's built through habits. It's built through routines and mindset reps. This is where we teach you how to think like a champion, right? You can bounce back from failure and reframe your setbacks with specific tactics and routines. You learn how to train your focus, how to visualize, how to prepare mentally for high pressure moments. And we combine that with emotional regulation because that underscores everything, right? Your emotions drive a lot of your actions and thoughts. And we teach you how to regulate those emotions in real time. One layer deeper is the relational core, right? So as an athlete, you learn how to communicate with coaches and teammates in ways that earn respect and playing time. We train you to build high trust relationships with coaches, teammates, and family members, and teach you how to have those hard conversations, not only with other people, but with yourselves. Truth over comfort. And when the support system is strong, your performance becomes so much easier. Like I said, last but certainly not least, there's spiritual formation that happens here. I have a faith background, and a lot of athletes we work with have a faith background. And if that's important to you from a Christian standpoint, talk to me. We can certainly integrate that into the program. It's not built in specifically, but we understand the importance of spiritual formation. And this is where we help you separate your self-worth from your performance so you can play with complete freedom. Understanding that inner clarity gives you meaning and purpose when you're out there on the floor. So like we talked about with Haley Van Lith, going from silent struggle to a Sweet 16 hero, once she was able to align her faith and identity and purpose, she was no longer driven by fear and anxiety. Her playing became an expression of who she was. So we talk about each of these 4 cores, and that's how we structure the program. And here's just a snapshot of some of the scientific training that happens within here, right? So we learn about energy management, rest and recovery strategies, focus, concentration, emotional management and resilience, preparation and goal setting, mental rehearsal and imagery, just to name a few, right? I won't list off all the bullet points, but you get the idea that everything is science-based, and we use a lot of story and narrative like we've gone through in this masterclass to help bring these ideas to life. So how do we do that? We talked about the 4 cores and how we address those 4 cores, but we have a custom framework in order to help develop and work through these 4 cores in tandem, right? Because physical, mental, relational, spiritual, those are all 4 separate cores, but you want to be able to develop them at the same time. But how do we actually train that? So most athletes are overtrained physically, right? We've just talked about that, but they're undertrained in the other 4 cores. So your physical core, your outside shell is well developed, so you think, but the other 3 cores are underdeveloped, and that's what's hindering your performance. That's why we developed this peace mode framework. Again, scientifically based and proven framework for helping you level up. And here's how the peace mode framework works. We start with P, right? So that's practice and preparation. Here, you learn how to train with focus and recovery in mind, and you build daily habits and pregame routines. So we teach you how to practice, right? How to build those habits, how to build those routines. We do those in weeks 3 and 4. So you're probably wondering, why do we starting here in these weeks? The first 2 weeks are where we really unpack those 4 cores, give athletes a complete understanding of how those work together, and do those assessments and build that strategy. And then we go to work putting the peace mode framework in action. Next, we have engage with energy. That's the E in peace, right? So here's where you bring that intensity and joy into your performance. You identify the focus killers in your life. You learn how to renew and transform your mind, and you harness the power of visualizations to sharpen your skills 24/7. Next, we have A, accept and adapt, right? Here's where you learn how to navigate setbacks and stay flexible. You build your resilience in this module or in these modules, and you learn how to bounce back quickly from mistakes, right? So you uncover how to master your self-talk, and you build on the personalized performance routines and emotional regulation strategies to help you manage stress and anxiety. C stands for commit with courage. Here's where you learn how to speak up and show up under pressure, right? We teach you that courage is more important than confidence and show you how to show up when it matters most. And now last but not least, execute with excellence. This is where you can finally perform from a place of purpose, not panic, and start to access that flow state that is so elusive to so many athletes, but just playing from a point of just letting go and letting the training go to work on the floor. Now, for those elite level athletes, we have training blueprints that we develop for each athlete. And then for those athletes that are at that, high collegiate professional level, we have personal branding workshops, help you develop NIL packages, and really understand what's your story and how to leverage your story to increase your impact and your earning potential. Talked about the community, and this is one of the most exciting things about this new platform. So we've just migrated to a new platform this year. This is 2025, the filming of this. And we have a leaderboard that's built into the platform that really gamifies your engagement and your ability to build community. And then tied to the points within the leaderboard, we actually have real world prizes, right? So everything from merch to additional training, to gear, so they can not only learn, but be engaged and excited about learning and growing and training. Now, there are 3 levels of training packages within the Breakthrough Collective. There's a starter, an all-star, and an MVP package. And just as a bit of a snapshot, I won't go through every single thing that's included. There's quite a lot, but just as a mention, you start off with an onboarding call and an assessment, a personality assessment. And then from there, we help build out your personalized training plan to start the program. Then you dive into learning more about the 4 cores and how to refine each of those through your personalized training plan. And then we jump into the Peace Mode framework training. And these are all on-demand video training. There is weekly group coaching calls, and this is where a lot of the magic happens. So learning how to apply the techniques that you're doing on a weekly basis. And, we are working with elite athletes and they already don't have a ton of time to begin with. So this is structured to not add more time, but it's structured to be integrated with the things that you're already doing. So actively, in terms of learning, it might take you an hour a week, 30, 45 minutes to an hour a week to apply this training. And then it becomes layered into the training that you're already doing. And depending on the package that you go with, we also have game film reviews, like I mentioned, the personalized branding workshops, one-on-one coaching calls, usually with our all-star and MVPs. And then we have unlimited DM and text support for those upper group levels, right? So we are available, our coaching team is available with those unlimited DM packages. So you've got a choice, right? You have all the mistakes that you're making. You know what they are, right? And you know what the solutions are. We've gone through them. I've outlined all the tactics. You can even save this video, and I'd encourage you to do so. I didn't want to make this like one of those live masterclasses where you have to show up at a certain time, and if you're not here, you don't get the benefit. I want you to benefit from these things. I would encourage you to do so. So save this video and refer back to it often. But if you're a serious athlete, which is who I'm talking to, you have coaches or multiple coaches, and you understand that this stuff is complex, and you would need some support to help put these things into practice. And that's why we developed the Breakthrough Collective. It's for you guys to help you level up and really get some additional coaching in areas that you're not getting right now. And your sport coaches are not equipped to train you in, but they know are equally as important, right? The NBA teams talk all the time about the intangibles and how they focus more on athletes with the intangibles than they do on those with just skills and talent, because the intangibles are things that win championships, right? So your choice now is to join the Breakthrough Collective. If you are looking at just a starter package, you can sign up right now. If you're looking at the All-Star MVP package, there's a bit of an application process because, again, it's a high-level program, and we need to understand where you're at, what level of commitment you're at, and how we can best support you. If those are the 2 programs you're interested, either the All-Star or the MVP, just go and hit apply below. And obviously, because this is such a high-touch program, especially at the All-Star and MVP level, these spots are limited, and we usually open up cohorts at the beginning of every month. So if you're looking at this at the beginning of a month, great, you might be able to get in immediately. If not, just fill out the application and you'll immediately get on the wait list. We will have a call with you right away and determine how and when we can slot you into the next cohort. But I'd encourage you, after watching this masterclass, don't feel like you need to figure it out on your own. So don't waste any more time, right? Don't keep watching YouTube videos and looking for that magic bullet. You know what it takes. You know that it's more than just the physical training, and you know that you need some coaching and support in order to develop those things. So don't hesitate. Just click that link down below if you want to join this starter community right away. That's open. And if you want to either be an all-star or MVP, apply and we'll reach out to you and see if there's openings in this cohort or if we get you on the wait list for the next one. Like we said earlier, you're probably not a rec player, right? You're an elite player if you're watching this video. So if you are that player and you're ready to stop seeing average players surpass you and you're ready to actually maximize your potential, don't wait. Click the link down below. Let's get after it. I'll see you on the other side.